players that they love, that they take with them wherever they go. Acho, I can tell you, I've been a pet cat. I was a guy who was a wide receiver, converted to cornerback in Green Bay. John Snyder moved from Green Bay to Kansas City. I go there. John Snyder then eventually goes to the Seattle Seahawks. I retire and become a scout for him. And so what typically happens in the league, when you get comfortable with players, you trust them, and there's a connectivity. So when I go back to Urban Meyer, man, Tim Tebow might be the most decorated player that Urban Meyer ever coached on the collegiate level. So there's a level of gratitude that he feels towards Tim Tebow. So if Tim Tebow is down on his luck, he's looking for an opportunity. I am now the head of a new organization. I'm the czar, and I can make these things happen. Naturally, I'm going to give one of my favorite players an opportunity. Now, it's on Tim Tebow what he does, but we see this all the time. Just look in Dallas. Dan Quinn brought Keanu Neal and DeMonte Kazee with him to Dallas. Last year, Brian Flores gets the gig in Miami. He brings Cal Van Noy with him to the Dolphins from the Patriots. We see it time and time again. This is commonplace. I am not surprised that Tim Tebow has a spot with the Jacksonville Jaguars because he's always been one of Urban Meyer's favorites.
I appreciate that, Bucky Brooks. I appreciate that. I'm here now joined by my big brother, Sam Acho. The question, Sam, is not so much am I surprised by it, because I'm not surprised by it. Like Bucky, he's not. He's a wise man. The question is, do you have an issue with it? So do you have an issue with the Jacksonville Jaguars signing Tim Tebow?
Emmanuel, I don't. I don't have an issue with Jacksonville signing Tim Tebow. And the reason why is that this is Urban Meyer's first year in the NFL. And Bucky alluded to it a little bit, but when you're a new coach, you want some familiarity. And I believe that Urban Meyer has a plan. He had a plan everywhere he's been. At Utah, he had a plan. He had a plan at Ohio State. Florida, everywhere he's been, he has a plan. And what we've seen, like you saw in your time in Philly, he has a plan. Let's go to some of the coaches. Right, let me just present that for a second. Chris Ash, the DB's coach right now in Jacksonville. He coached with Urban at Ohio State. Brian Schneider, he's a Jag special teams coordinator. He coached with Urban back at Colorado State. Even going to Charlie Strong, who you and I both know well from our time at Texas. Charlie Strong was the DC with Urban in Florida. And so what I see Urban doing is bringing people around him to try and succeed at a level that he hasn't been at before. He's not trying to fail with people he doesn't know. At least let me bring the Tim Tebows of the world, my coaches. Let me get some players who I know. Carlos Hyde, he brought him in the offseason. He coached Carlos Hyde at Ohio State and drafted Luke Farrell. So he's bringing as many people as possible to be comfortable in his new position. I have no issue.
The issue I have, and I need my 3 box because I want to look at Bucky and I want to look at my brother at the same dang time. The issue I have, fellas, is not familiarity. That's not my problem. I understand familiarity. The issue I have is a lack of qualification. Bucky, you talked about Brian Flores bringing in fellas he's familiar with. Kyle Van Noy played for the Patriots. Outside linebacker Brian Flores brought him into Miami. So many others. Sam, you mentioned a litany of players, a litany of coaches that Urban Meyer is familiar with. Well, Chris Ash has coached before. Charlie Strong has coached before. My guy Bucky Brooks, you mentioned Keanu Neal. He's played safety at a high level, even in the NFL before. So I have no issue with that. But fellas, let's talk about the issues. I have an issue when you're hiring somebody that is not qualified. I'll speak from experience. 2013, Philadelphia Eagles. I'm on the roster. I'm there with Chip Kelly, Michael Vick, LaShawn McCoy, Deshaun Jackson, all them dudes. But also on the roster is a great person, but a wide receiver by the name of Will Murphy, non-wide receiver at the University of Oregon. Look him up if you shall, but I'll tell you about it. Will Murphy had a career, 24 catches, 240 yards. Career, 24 catches, 240 yards. We kept Will Murphy on practice squad over B.J. Cunningham, a 6th-round pick who had, in his senior year at Michigan State, 79 catches, 1,300 yards, and 12 touchdowns. I was flabbergasted. Bucky, in the locker room, we're like, yo, we really the Philadelphia Ducks. We the Oregon Eagles. Here's the problem. I don't mind you hiring somebody you're familiar with, but you can't hire somebody you're familiar with who is not qualified. Tim Tebow is a phenomenal college football player, maybe one of the greatest college football players ever. but he's not a tight end. He's never played tight end. He hasn't played in the NFL in 8 years. Last time he was on a roster was 5 years ago. Fellas, y'all have to make this make sense. There is no reason to put Tim Tebow on an NFL roster. You want him in the locker room, Bucky Brooks? Make him an assistant strength coach. You want him in the locker room, Sam Acho? Make him a player development coach. But you don't need to give him a helmet and shoulder pads, y'all.
Emmanuel, so first of all, let me just hop in real quick, because I know you're passionate. We were talking together in Philly. When you were in Philly, I was in Arizona. You're passionate, I'm passionate. I get it. Tim Tebow, you played with him. Y'all are friends. Y'all are homies. I understand that. But if you want to talk about even the coaching aspect, you said, okay, make him as a coach. He's never coached before. So there's no room for that. Strength coach. He's never been a strength coach before. So I feel your point. But at the end of the day, there's some NFL players that are probably upset that Tim Tebow was getting a roster spot. You were one of them, Emmanuel. You're probably very upset that Tim Tebow is getting a roster spot. But here's the thing. Many of those players who are upset about this roster spot may not have a job regardless. They may not have a job anyways. There's 90-plus guys on the roster right now. The roster gets cut down to about 52, actually 53 in a couple months. Those guys, if Tim Tebow's taking your job, you probably didn't deserve a job in the first place.
No. These are personal attacks that you are making, Sam Acho, on your own flesh and blood. How dare you? Now, here's the thing, Bucky, before I get to you, sir. Tim Tebow may never have been a strength coach before, but at least he lifted weights. Tim Tebow, he ain't never been a head coach before, but at least he's given a motivational speech. I will never let us lose another football game again as long as I am the quarterback. At least he done that. Last time Tim Tebow was throwing a ball that hit him in the face mask. Y'all look it up. So again, Sam, it's not a matter of, favoritism, having him in the locker room. I'm not surprised, Bucky. I'm not surprised. But he did not deserve the job. And if you, Bucky, are going to go on record, which you have done, and said we need to make sure that the most qualified coaches get jobs, how dare you come on the same record, on the same show, and turn a blind eye to Tebow?
Because what he's getting is not really a job. He's getting an opportunity. It's a difference. If Tim Tebow makes the roster at the end of the year when they kick it off, then he's earned the job, but he has to earn it. But we've seen all kinds of guys come through the locker room. We've seen track stars who have never played a down get an opportunity to come through a camp. We've seen basketball players who've never played football get an opportunity to play in the National Football League through training camp. So I can understand being all upset about Tim Tebow getting an opportunity, but sometimes, man, and we know this, sometimes it's who you know, not what you know. And Tim Tebow is parlaying his relationship into an opportunity. But ultimately, it's on Tim Tebow to earn the job. They're not going to give him a roster spot. He is going to have to show people that he can do the things either as a tight end or as a special teamer. The odds are long in terms of him being able to do that. So we'll see. No need to get upset. He has to go out and compete just like these guys do at these rookie mini camps and tryouts. We'll see if Tim Tebow can get it done.
Bucky, I'm glad you said a roster spot, not the roster spot. Let's break this down for fans. We've all been in locker rooms. We've all been on teams. The objective when you're in an NFL training camp isn't to make the team. The objective is to make a team. You're auditioning for all 32 teams. You're not auditioning just for your team. If you've ever played in the league, you understand exactly what I'm saying. But here's the problem with that ideology as it pertains to Tim Tebow. You cannot make a team unless you are on the team, because being on the team allows all teams to see you. So, yes, that 90th roster spot, that 5th tight end on the depth chart, he's likely not going to make the team, and Tim Tebow is likely not going to make the team. That's the Jacksonville Jaguars. But who did he rob the opportunity from making a team? I'm passionate because I was that dude. I was that 5th-string linebacker, Bucky Brooks. I was that 4th linebacker on the depth chart, Sam Acho. I was the 6th-round pick. Sach, you were the 4th-round pick. Bucky, I don't recall where you were drafted, but you had a longer career than I. You was the 2nd-round pick. I was the guy who Tim Tebow is robbing a roster spot. I was the guy who Tim Tebow is robbing the opportunity at the chance to make a team. Now, is it far-fetched? Absolutely. I was cut 5 times before the age of 25. Now, I still played my 4 years, vested pension annuity. That's why I'm sitting right here right now, so I ain't tripping. But I was still robbed my opportunities. Let me clarify again. I am not at all upset at Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow's a great locker room guy. Tim Tebow's a gre's a great guy. Tim Tebow's a friend of mine. If I saw him right now, I'd dap him up. We played together. But I have an issue with, and we all should have an issue with, any aspect in society where the most qualified person or people or persons are not getting jobs because of some dude that you know.
Yeah, I have no issue with your emotions, Emmanuel, and you're a very logical person who's acting and speaking on emotion right now. But let's just